Around it, and know that we are one. Yeah, yeah, we are one. Oh, we are one.
I'm Earl Purdy, and I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles. And we're going to talk about the ego-body illusion from A Course in Miracles. We're teaching, and we're going to be coming from A Course in Miracles. So what is the false ideas about who you are? And what is the body? What is the body for real? We're going to find out. We're going to check it out. And I'm excited to be here with you. And we're going to do A Course in Miracles.
Same heart. We've been together from the start. Tell me, can you hear it? Tell me, can you feel it? Put your arms around it. Know that we are one. Yeah, yeah, we are one. Oh, we are one. I am you, and you are me.
Hey, I'm Earl Purdy. Welcome to Hardcore Course in Miracles here on Facebook Live. I am so glad that you're here with me, and we can go deep into A Course in Miracles. The Hardcore Course in Miracles is primarily for people who are interested in the Course in Miracles and people who really want to hear another way of looking at things. So one of the most important things to remember is we're going to talk about the ego, and we're going to talk about the body, and we're going to talk about the ego-body illusion. And so in order for us to dive into this, I want you to take a breath, let go of everything that's normally occupying your consciousness right now. And remember that you don't have to believe the ideas. You don't have to believe the ideas. You don't have to accept the ideas. You don't have to accept the ideas. You don't have to even welcome the ideas. Some of the ideas you may actively resist. Some of the ideas you will find hard to believe. And some of the ideas are going to be quite startling. Now, I'm going to say that again because sometimes I think that we don't really let ourselves really hear what the Course is saying. The Course itself says some of the stuff that it says you're going to find hard to believe, that you're going to have some resistance to some of the things. You may have some resistance to some of the things the Course in Miracles says. The Course in Miracles says you might find some of the things hard to believe, and other things that the Course in Miracles says might be quite startling. And do you know that you're not here to judge the ideas? You're not here to analyze. I've been teaching and learning A Course in Miracles for over 40 years. And one of the things that the Course in Miracles says over and over again is to remember the ideas and then use the ideas. The Course in Miracles never, anywhere in the material, says that you are to sit around and analyze what the Course in Miracles is saying and then try to fit what the Course in Miracles is saying into what you already believe. It says if you use the ideas, you will see that the ideas are true. If you use the ideas, that will give the ideas meaning. So I'm Earl Purdy. I've been a teacher and a student of A Course in Miracles for over 40 years. And I've been doing it full time for over 30. So I want you to know hold up just a second. We're gonna be on page We're gonna be on page. Let's see. Okay. The ego has been trying to mess with me starting out tonight, but that's okay. Doesn't make any difference. We're gonna be on page. We're going to be on page 65 in the Course in Miracles text. We're going to be on page 65. We're going to be in chapter 4. We're going to be in section 5, the ego body illusion. The separated mind body illusion, which is the same as saying the separated mind, the ego, body illusion, which is false idea. The Course in Miracles says an illusion is a false idea. That's one of the definitions that the Course in Miracles uses for illusion. So when you hear illusion, we're talking about a false idea. The Course in Miracles premise is basically, you are not what you think you are. You're 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 probably not what you think you are. The Course in Miracles says that we've forgotten who we really are and what we really are. We think that we are human beings only. We've forgotten the fact that we are spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings. You could say we are mind, or you could say we are awareness. We are spirit. The Course in Miracles says we are spirit. That there's a part of you that thinks you are a human being. Of course, there's a part of you that thinks you are separate. There's a part of you that thinks that you are the physical body. There's a part of you that believes you are the physical body. There's a part of you that believes you are your physical body. There's a part of you that believes that you are your physical body. There's a part of your mind that believes that other people are their physical bodies. Like, for instance, when you look at this body called Earl Purdy, you think this is Earl Purdy. You may think you're looking at Earl Purdy right now. But you're not looking at Earl Purdy right now. What you're physically looking at is Earl Purdy's body. You're looking at Earl Purdy's body. You're looking at the spirit. You're looking at my body. And in looking at my body, you may be tempted to think that this body is Earl Purdy. The Course in Miracles says the part of you that thinks you are a physical body is called the ego. The part of your mind that thinks you are a physical body is called the ego. So when you hear the ego, we're talking about the part of you that thinks that you are the body. The part of you that thinks you are the body is called the ego. Okay. Now you are an unlimited spiritual being. You are an unlimited spiritual being. And we're going to be on page 65 in the Course in Miracles, section 5, the ego body illusion, in chapter 4. So what does it start out with? What is it that we need to remember? All things work together for good. All things work together for good. Sometimes when I'm thinking about the situations and circumstances that I perceive in the world, sometimes it's hard to believe that everything that's happening is working together for good. Do you have a problem? Do you have a challenge sometimes believing that everything that's happening is serving some really good purpose that we may or may not know about? Well, what the Course in Miracles says is all things work together for good. And it also tells us what else? It says there are no exceptions. There are no exceptions. All things work together for good. Everything that's happening in your life, no matter what it looks like, is serving some higher good. And the Course in Miracles says there are no exceptions. No exceptions. You mean everything that I hear, see, perceive is working together for good. According to the Course in Miracles, even though that might sound quite startling, even though you may have some resistance to that, depending on what you're going through in your life right now, what part of you thinks that there are exceptions to the idea that all things work together for good? Which says there are no exceptions except in the ego's judgment. Now, the ego doesn't believe that that's true. The part of you that thinks you are separate, the part of you that may be afraid, the part of you that thinks it is separate from God, thinks it's on its own, thinks it's a body, the ego doesn't believe that everything works together for good. So that's a part of you that doesn't believe that everything works together for good. So there's a part of you that's called the ego. What does it do? There's a part of you that exerts maximal vigilance. So what is a part of you doing? There's a part of you that exerts maximal vigilance about what it permits into your awareness. There's a part of you that's very vigilant about what it allows you to become aware of. That's the ego. That's the part of you that exerts vigilance over what it allows you to be aware of. So there's a part of you that is keeping you unaware of some things. It's called the what? It's called the ego. I call him Ego Earl. Ego Earl, the Earl that thinks, the part of me that thinks I'm this body named Earl Purdy, that part of me that thinks it's separate, it exerts maximal vigilance over what it allows to come into my awareness. But do you know that that's not the way a balanced mind holds together? So a balanced mind is not a mind that is censored and limited in terms of what it can be aware of. And also, your ego, the part of you that believes it's separate, is thrown further off balance because it keeps its primary motivation from your awareness. Your ego keeps its main motivation away from your awareness. Your ego, the part of the mind that is frightened, the part of the mind that feels guilt and fear and thinks it's on its own, that part of you keeps its primary motivation from your awareness. There's a part of you called the ego that tries to raise control rather than sanity to predominance. The average person is trying to control things. The average person is trying to control things and people rather than focusing their primary focus on learning how to be more sane. So the average person thinks in order to be safe, they have to control their environment, they have to control the people in their environment, and they have to control all the circumstances around them. So a frightened mind is much more interested in control than it is in being sane. And do you know that your ego has every reason to try to be in control? Because according to the way the average person thinks, according to the thought system which gave rise to the ego and which it serves, the There is a part of you and I that believes it is a body that is vulnerable and is on its own and has to try to control everything in order to feel safe. And that part of you that is the ego, it wants to control everything, including even what it allows you to become aware of. So there's a part of you that actually tries to control you and control how much you let in and what you become aware of. So, what would sane judgment do? The Course in Miracles says sane judgment would inevitably judge against the ego. See, a person using sanity would judge against separation, anger, guilt. The part of you that's sane would judge against attack, judge against sickness, judge against lack. So the part of you that is sane, the part of you that is divine, the part of you that is loving, that part of your mind must be obliterated by the fearful, angry, insecure, controlling part of the mind, which is the ego, in the interest of its self-preservation. So if the controlling part of a person is in charge, if the insane part of a person is in charge, then that part of that person is going to try to obliterate any thoughts of love, any thoughts of unity, any thoughts of peace. Have you noticed that when someone says that we should love each other and we should care about each other and we should join with each other, that a lot of times that person gets a lot of ridicule. That person gets a lot of pushback. And they're told that they're crazy for wanting to be loving and trusting in this world. So there's a part of your mind that is insane, according to the Course. It's just crazy as hell, that has forgotten that it's spirit, has forgotten that it's joined and one with everything and everybody. There's a part of your mind, according to the Course, that has forgotten God, forgotten its connection with the Creator. The Course says there's a part of you that thinks it's autonomous, self-sufficient, and on its own. That part of you is called the ego. The ego does everything in its power to blot out the loving you, the divine you, the God you, the sane you. Now, what is a major source of your ego's off-balance state? Well, the part of you that thinks it's a body, that part of you has a lack of discrimination between the body and thoughts of God and thoughts of love. You see, thoughts of God, thoughts of love are unacceptable to the ego, to the fearful mind, to the guilty mind, to the angry mind, to the fearful person, to the guilty person, to the person who has forgotten their connection to source. Thoughts of love are unacceptable because thoughts of God, thoughts of love, thoughts of truth point to the non-existence of your ego. See, when you hear the Course in Miracles that tells you that you're innocent and loved and loving, that part of you is unacceptable to the part of you that's fearful, suspicious, and doesn't trust. Because thoughts of love, thoughts of truth, do you know they actually point to the non-existence of the ego, of the fear, of the guilt? So that old controlling ego that's been in control of you for so long, it either distorts the truth, it either distorts thoughts of God, It distorts thoughts of love. It also refuses to accept the thoughts of love, the thoughts of God, the thoughts of truth. But your ego, the part of you that thinks it's just a human being, that part of you cannot make your thoughts of God, your thoughts of love cease to be. Even though there's a fearful part of the mind, it cannot make the loving thoughts stop. Your ego cannot make the thoughts of love cease to be. Listen, listen, listen. There's a part of you that's used to being in control, that's fearful and thinks it's a body, thinks it's a man or a woman. That part of you, called the ego, does everything it can to make sure that thoughts of God, thoughts of love, the truth doesn't reach your awareness. There's a part of you that thinks it needs to control things. So it's more interested in controlling than it is in being sane. That part of you can't tell the difference between thoughts of God and the body. There's a part of you that knows that if it listens to the Course in Miracles, if it listens to the truth is going to teach you that your ego does not exist. Your separate self doesn't really exist. Your separate self doesn't really exist. You are not separate. You are joined with all that is. You are joined. You are one with all that is. You are love. You are loving. You are lovable. But there's a part of you that has forgotten that. And the Course in Miracles says that your ego, what else does it do? It says it cannot, however, make thoughts of God cease to be. So what does your ego do? It therefore tries to conceal not only unacceptable body impulses, but there's a part of you that also tries to hide all your thoughts of God and love, because unacceptable body impulses, for instance, one unacceptable body impulse is actually sex. Sex is an unacceptable body impulse to the ego, to the part that wants to be separate, to the part of you that believes in separation. It wants to hide physical impulses, and it wants to hide thoughts of God and thoughts of the truth. Now, this is deep. I told you, hardcore Course in Miracles is for people who studied the Course in Miracles who really want to go deep. So I'm not even doing this at a beginner's level necessarily, even though I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, because the truth is simple. It's not complicated. The truth is not complicated. There's a loving part of your mind and a fearful part of your mind. The fearful part of the mind tries to control everything, and it wants to stay in control. It tries to block all of your loving thoughts and your sane thoughts. The fearful part of you, called the ego, wants to hide all of your unacceptable body impulses. And one example of that is sex. Why? Because sex is symbolic of a form of joining. Even if it's bodies joining, it still is a form of joining. So the ego, the part of the mind that believes in separation and being separate, is against any kind of joining. So sex is a real obvious one. But any kind of joining, any kind of connecting is something that a fearful mind is afraid to do. A fearful mind wants to separate. A fearful mind wants to attack what it sees as different from itself. So when you have any kind of desire to join, even at a physical level, It's unacceptable to your ego. It's threatening to your ego. So if you notice, people feel much more threatened who think that their bodies, they feel a lot more threatened when there's any kind of real joining and coming together than they do when it comes to separating, judging, and attacking. So the ego is the part of a person that's concerned primarily with their own preservation in the face of threat. The ego is the part of each person that's looking out for itself primarily. So an ego person is a person who's always just looking out for themselves, only thinking about themselves. It's all about their personal interests, and they're not really thinking about us, all of us. They only think about themselves. So an ego person is afraid to really connect and join. An ego person is a person that doesn't want to talk about love, does not want to hear thoughts of God, thoughts of truth. And the ego person is a person that's concerned primarily with their own preservation in the face of threat. So the ego is the part of you and me that feels threatened or feels afraid or doesn't trust, the part of us that thinks it's on its own. The ego perceives unacceptable body impulses to join and thoughts of God and truth as the same. What do you mean? There's a part of us that sees joining and love as threatening. It's afraid of love, and it's also afraid to join. Now, you don't have to believe these ideas. You don't have to accept these ideas. It's not about you believing these ideas necessarily and accepting these ideas necessarily. What I'm trying to do in the Course in Miracles class is really help people just hear what the Course in Miracles is saying. Because before you can even begin to change your mind, you have to at least hear what the premises are. So what I'm doing is trying to support you being able to hear just what the Course in Miracles is saying. So what did that paragraph basically say? And that was in chapter 4, section 5, paragraph 2. So there's a part of us that doesn't know the difference between love and fear. There's a part of us that wants to control. There's a part of us that's afraid of the truth, that's afraid of the Course, that's afraid of anything that's going to get us to join. So there's a part of you that tries to limit your awareness to certain things. And the Course in Miracles says to us, your ego is trying to save itself. Your ego, your sense of being a separate being, is trying to save itself from being swept away, because your ego would surely be swept away in the presence of knowledge. When you really accept the truth, then your fear is going to be swept away. When you truly are in the presence of knowledge, which is the truth, your anger, your guilt, your grievances are going to be swept away. So what makes the Course in Miracles a challenge to teach is because I've got to get past your ego, who is the guardian at the gate, who is trying to determine what I'm saying that it agrees with, what I'm saying that it doesn't agree with, what I'm saying that's true, what I'm saying that's not true. Your ego is censoring and filtering everything that I'm saying to you right now, as a matter of fact. Your ego is the part of you that's trying to decide whether or not you should believe what the Course is saying, or whether or not what the Course is saying is true. It's the part that feels threatened by some of the things that A Course in Miracles teaches. That's the ego. So any thought system that confuses God and the body must be insane. Any way of thinking that confuses love and the body must be insane. Yet having this confusion about love, which is God, and the body is essential to the ego. What's essential to the ego? The ego is confused about God and is confused about the body. Any thought system that confuses God and the body must be insane. What does that mean? What does that mean? This confusion about God and this confusion about the body is essential to the ego. See, the ego is what part of you? The ego is the part of you which judges only in terms of threat or non-threat. So my ego is judging everything in terms of, is what I'm hearing a threat to me, or is what I'm hearing not a threat to me? So the ego, the false self, it judges everything in terms of threat or non-threat. So that part of you that feels threatened is the ego. It's not your real self. Your real self, your God self, your divine self knows that it is perfectly, completely loved and completely safe. Your real self knows that it cannot be destroyed. Your real self knows that it is eternal and that it creates its reality, that it's not a victim of the world it sees. But your false self, your ego judges everything in terms of, is this a threat to me or is it not a threat to me? Is this person a threat to me or are they not a threat to me? So in a sense, your ego's fear of God and the truth is at least logical. It's at least logical that your ego has a fear of truth and a fear of God. It's logical that the fearful part of the mind would feel like the loving part of the man is a threat. It makes sense that the fearful part of you would feel threatened by the loving part of you, because the idea of love, the idea of God, does dispel the ego, which is your fear. So love dispels fear. Love dispels fear. So how do you get rid of your fear? You get rid of fear through mastery, through love. You don't try to master fear, because that asserts the power of fear if you think you got to spend all your time mastering your fear. True mastery comes through being loving. True mastery comes through love, not fear. Now, what is it that doesn't make any sense at all, according to the course? What doesn't make any sense at all? It doesn't make any sense at all to be afraid of the body. It doesn't make any sense to be afraid of the body. It doesn't make any sense for you to be afraid of the body. Since you identify with the body, since there's a part of you that thinks you are a body, that part of you that thinks you are a body certainly shouldn't be afraid of the body. If I think I am a body, then I shouldn't be afraid of my body. If I think I am the body, to be afraid of the body is to be afraid of myself. If I think I am the body, then to be afraid of the body is to be afraid of myself. So fear of the body, with which the ego identifies so closely, makes no sense at all. Do you know that Earl Purdy is another name for the ego? Earl Purdy, who thinks he's separate, the part of Earl who thinks he's separate from God and separate from you, that is the part of Earl Purdy that is the ego. So since there's a part of me, I'm going to use me as an example because it'll make it easier for you to, I think it'll make it easier for you to hear what the Course is saying. The ego is the part of me that thinks I'm separate, sitting up here on the sofa. The part of me that's sitting up on the sofa that thinks it's Earl Purdy also thinks this body is Earl Purdy. So for me to be afraid of the body doesn't make any sense at all. If I think I am this body, what kind of sense does it make for me to be afraid of the body? Because then it means I'm afraid of myself all the time. Now, you have chosen to be in a body, and that was your choice. By your own election, you have chosen to incarnate. You have chosen to identify with the body and think you are the body. It's the only identification with which the separated mind feels safe. The part of us that thinks it's a body, it wants to hear that we are bodies. because that's the only identification that the part of me that thinks it's a body, that's the only identification that I feel safe with, is my body. Now, there's a part of you that's trying to teach you that you cannot be of God. There's a part of you that tries to teach you that you cannot be of God, that you cannot be a divine, that you can't really be this divine being that the Course in Miracles is telling you that you are. So why is it that there's a part of me called the ego that only feels safe when it's identified with the body? Because the fact that your body can be destroyed, the fact that your body can be hurt, the fact that your body can be vulnerable, that's your ego's own best argument that you cannot be of God. See, the truth is saying that who you really are is something that is eternal, that is something that is innocent, that you are something that is pure love, that you are something that is joined with everybody. But of course, there's a part of me that doesn't believe that. There's a part of me that thinks I'm a body. There's a part of me that thinks I could be hurt. There's a part of me that feels threatened. That part of me doesn't want to believe it when this book says to me, no, you are a spiritual being. You are an unlimited being. You cannot be hurt. Who and what you really are is eternal. And your ego, the false self, it turns around and it says to you, well, you couldn't possibly be divine. You couldn't possibly be all powerful. You couldn't possibly be a part of God. You could be hurt in a second. So the body's vulnerability is the ego's own best argument that you can't be of God. So there's a part of you that's saying you cannot be of love. You cannot be of God. You cannot be divine. That's called the ego. And that's a belief that the fearful part of a person, the ego, sponsors eagerly. So our ego is saying to us, you cannot be of God because you are something that can be killed. You are something that can catch a disease. You are something that can be hurt. So you couldn't possibly be a God-like being. You could not possibly be a divine being. That is a lie. That is a lie. You are not your body. You have a body. You have a body to communicate with. Your body is your flesh suit that you're using to function in this realm, in this world. To say you are your body is just as wrong as to say you are your clothes. You are not your clothes. I'm not the pants I have on. I'm not the shirt that I have on. You are not the body that you have on. You are not the body that you have on. So what is your body? Your body is a communication device. Your body is the way that you function and move around and communicate in this plane, in this realm. Wow. You don't have to believe the ideas. You need not accept the ideas. You need not even welcome the ideas. Some of the ideas you may actively resist. Some of the ideas you will find hard to believe. Others may seem to be quite startling. You are not asked to judge the ideas at all. Their use will give the ideas meaning to you and will show you that the ideas are true. Remember only this, that comes from A Course in Miracles. You are not your flesh suit. You are not your flesh suit. But your ego thinks you are. See, the part of you that thinks you are, for instance, the part of you that thinks you are a woman or the part of you that thinks you are a man, that is the ego. That is your fake self. That is not your real, true self. That's the you that's been conditioned by the world. That's the you that learned who you are from the world. The world taught you that your body is you. The world taught you that you are only a woman or only a man or whatever gender identification that you use that's connected to the body. That's the ego. You are something more than that. You are more than your ego. You are more than your self-concept. You are more than what you learned you are. The body is a way that we join minds and communicate with each other. But the ego, which is the part of you that believes you are a body, that part of you uses the fact that your body could be hurt and you are the body to try to convince you that you couldn't possibly be the unlimited spiritual being that the Course in Miracles is telling you that you are. Yet, the ego, do you know what the ego hates? Do you know that there is a part of the mind that hates the body? There's a part of the mind that hates the body. So why is it that the ego hates the body? Why is it that think about it. Think about how many times you have looked, maybe in your lifetime, that you've looked at your body and hated it or didn't like it or feared it or judged it. It wasn't pretty enough. It wasn't strong enough. You know what I'm saying? The Course in Miracles says there's a part of you that hates the body because it can't accept that the body is good enough to be its home. And I'll say that again. That's why I'm taking this slow, because I know it's deep. I know it's different. Listen, there's a part of the person that the part of you that thinks you are separate from God, the part of you that thinks you are a body, also thinks that your body is not good enough. It's not handsome enough. It's not pretty enough. It's not slim enough. There's a part of the mind that doesn't think the body is good enough to be its home. So here is where the mind becomes actually dazed. Like right now, you may feel somewhat dazed. Being told by your ego, the part that thinks it's a body, that you are really part of the body, then that part of you that's telling you that you are part of the body also tells you that the body is your protector. And so you, the mind, you are also being told at the same time that you can't really be protected by your body. Okay, so I'm being told I am a body, but at the same time I'm being told my body could be hurt, and so my body really can't protect me because it's fragile and vulnerable. So if I can't go to my body because my body can't really protect me, because my body can be hurt, it can be crushed, it's vulnerable, and there's a part of me that's telling me that I am the body, and that's a part of me that believes somehow or another for me to keep thinking I'm a body is going to protect me. But at the same time, I'm being told that my body really isn't strong enough to really protect me because my body is vulnerable. Then my mind asks, where can I go for protection? Where can I go for protection? Where can I go? Okay, I think I'm in this body. It looks like this body could be hurt. It could be injured. It could get sick. It could be attacked. So really, it's obviously the body can't really protect me. Okay, but I think I am this separate body. So where do I go for protection? To which the ego tells the mind, turn to me. Your ego keeps telling you, your programming from the world keeps telling you, your past learning keeps telling you, the part of you that thinks you're a body keeps telling you, turn to me. I'll protect you. I'll use my ability to project and judge and attack. I will protect you. It's what your ego says to you. But then the Course in Miracles says, well, your mind, and not without cause, your mind reminds your ego that your ego has insisted it's identified with the body. And so what's the point of me turning to the part of me that's identified with the body for protection? Because the part of me that's identified with the body, it's the part of me that's identified with something that's fragile and easily hurt. So really, listening to my ego doesn't make much sense, because my ego is the part of me that feels threatened by everything. So there's no point in turning to your ego for protection. There is no point in turning to your ego for protection. There is no point in turning to your fearful thoughts for protection. There is no point in turning to your guilty thoughts for protection. There is no point in turning to your thoughts of being separate for protection. There is no point in turning to the part of your mind that wants to attack for protection. There is no point in turning to the part of you that thinks you are a body for protection. The part of you that thinks you are a body, it cannot protect you. That's your ego. Your ego is The separate you that you think is on your own, that thinks you are a man or woman, separate from everything and everybody else. Your ego is the part of you that thinks it can be a victim. Your ego is the part of you that doesn't know that you create your own perception of reality through your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and belief. Your ego is the part of you that doesn't know God, that doesn't remember God, that doesn't remember its divine identity and where you originally came from. You are not a body. You are not a body. You have a body, but you are not a body. You have the body, but you are not a body. You have a body, but you are not your body. You have a body, but you're not your body. You have a body, but you are not your body. You have a body, but you are not your body. You are spirit. You are spirit. You are spirit. You are spirit. You are spirit, and you have forgotten about it, because you've been listening to the part of you that's been conditioned and taught by the world that you are just a body that lives a certain number of days and years, and then you die one day. That's what you have been taught in the world. And your ego is the part of you that believes it. And it's the part of you that's been in control. That's why you've suffered in the past. That's why you've gone through pain in the past. You wonder where your pain comes from? It comes from listening to your ego, the conditioning and the learning that you've gotten from the world. Your ego is the part of you that believes you are sinful and guilty, and that you can be hurt, and that you are a body. That part of you has been running the show, The part of you that doesn't really know who you really are has been running the show. So there's no point in turning to your ego for protection. There's no point in turning to the ego for protection. Turning to the thoughts that you've learned from the world for protection. So your ego he says the ego has no real answer to this question, because there is no answer. You shouldn't turn to your separated self. You shouldn't be turning to your ego. You should be turning to God. You should be turning to love. You should be turning to your creator, and not to the you that you've made up. The you that you've made up. That's what the ego is. It's the you think you are. The you you've made up. So the real question is, where do you go for protection? Where do you really go for protection? So when there's something that your ego doesn't want you to question, it does have a typical solution. Your ego just obliterates the question, where do you really go for protection, from your mind's awareness. Most people don't stop and ask themselves, what is it that really makes me safe? What should I be doing that will really make me safe? Because the truth is, there's nothing in the world that can really make me safe. You know that's the truth. You know that there's nothing in the world that really guarantees your safety. You know that already. You know that your body can be injured. You know your body can be hurt. So you know the body is not something that you really want to identify with as just being you, because it's the part that seems to be most vulnerable. But there's a part of you that totally identifies with the body and thinks that you are the body. So you need to ask yourself, because you are mind, you are not body, you are consciousness, you are awareness. So ask yourself, you are spirit. So ask yourself, where do I really go for protection? Because once that question is out of awareness, that question can and does produce uneasiness. But the question, where do you really go for protection? That question cannot be answered because it cannot be asked. In most cases, the ego blocks and blots that question out of the mind. And most people, as they are running around doing everything they can to try to take care of themselves and take care of their families and take care of other things, the Course in Miracles is saying, the one thing you never do with all that rushing around and trying to protect yourself and take care of yourself, he says, what you don't do is ask yourself, where do I really go for protection? Where is my real protection located? Call in the Holy Spirit. That's where God comes in. But the ego, the part of you that doesn't believe in God, the part of you that doesn't believe in a higher power, that part of you tries to blot out any thoughts of a higher power or any beliefs about a higher power, or the ego tries to make you afraid of God. So therefore, the ego will give you all kinds of fearful, punishing images of God, will teach you about a fearful God that's going to punish you because you are so bad. Because that still is a thought that would make you want to turn away from God, because no one's going to want to go in the direction of a creator that's going to punish them and hurt them. So your ego, the lying part of your mind, is going to tell you to fear God instead of looking at God as your protection, looking at your creator as your helper. So once out of awareness, this question can and does produce uneasiness, but it can't be answered because it must. It can't be answered because you never ask yourself that question. So ask yourself that question. Where do you go for protection? Where do you go for protection? Ask yourself. So the next paragraph is such an intense, powerful paragraph that I'm not going to try to cover that this evening. I'm going to review what we've covered so far, because hopefully, this, what I've said so far, if it does nothing else but provoke thinking in you, not analyzing, but if it just makes you say, oh, wow, that was pretty deep. What did he say? What did the Course in Miracles say? I need to listen back to that again, because I know there's a part of me that's going to try to keep me from hearing this, called my ego. So I'm going to do a quick recap of what I covered in just a minute. So hang around so I can give you a quick review. I'm Earl Purdy. I am a full-time teacher of A Course in Miracles, and I do it on a donation basis. And if you'd like to make a donation to my teaching ministry, you can use Venmo, the Cash App, PayPal. You can use Zelle. You can go to my website, Earl Purdy, at earlpurdy.com, www.earlpurdy, P-U-R-D-Y, earlpurdy.com, earlpurdy.com. And I would truly appreciate that. And thank you so much for your generosity and your donation. I'm available for one-on-one coaching, mentoring, and I'm also available if you're dealing with some situation and you want to get another way of looking at it according to the Course in Miracles that would allow you to get past that block and to have it healed, then you can have a one-on-one session with me that's called a clarity session. Also, I am available. I am also a professional astrologer and numerologist. And if you would like an interpretation of your chart for the purpose of remembering who you really are and having peace and happiness and getting in touch with the divine plan for your life, I'm available for that too, if you're open-minded about it. But if you just want a clarity session, that's fine too. You go to my website, www.earlpurdy.com, and look under the Clarity Session tab, and it explains my services in detail, and you can self-book an appointment with me right online, and then you and I can work together on a one-on-one. Then I can take my 40 plus years of working with people with the Course in Miracles and New Thought and apply it to your situation and circumstance. On Sundays at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, on the Earl Purdy page on Facebook, I do another Facebook Live. And you can tune in and watch it on the Course in Miracles. And if you're in Denver, you can come and attend that class on Sunday in person at 1555 Race, R-A-C-E, Street in Denver, Colorado, 80206. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. is Hardcore Course in Miracles, 7 p.m. Mountain Time on Facebook Live, on the Earl Purdy page. And I want to invite you to continue to check out the Hardcore Course in Miracles. All right. That's on Thursdays. That's right. Wow. Sundays at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And please share the videos. I have hundreds and hundreds of videos on YouTube, also on my website, and also on Facebook that you can watch and listen to for free. That's right. I'm giving. And because it's time for us to wake up to who we really are. You know that we're in an insane world right now. And we know that the answer has to be something other than what the world believes that the answer is. So what is the ego-body illusion? The ego-body illusion is the ego. You are an unlimited spiritual being. but you have taught yourself and have been taught that you are a body and separate. All things work together for good. All things work together for good except in the fearful man's judgment. There is what you call the ego, and you have an ego. And that ego has been used to being in control. So it exerts maximal vigilance over what it allows you to believe and understand. So when you're talking to most people, you're not really talking to that person. You're talking to that person's ego. Ego. Usually when you're talking to a person who thinks they are a separate being, you're usually talking to their ego. The part of them that thinks they're different from you. The part of you that thinks the part of them that thinks they are a body. That's who you're really talking to and hanging out with in most cases. People who've forgotten who they truly are. And people who've forgotten who they truly are, they raise control rather than sanity to predominance. They want to control them. They want to control everything. And you met people, and you know there's a part of you that likes to be in control if you be honest with yourself. Now, you're going to have sane judgment, and sane judgment is going to judge against fear, anger, guilt, and attack. So your ego tries to get rid of every sane, every loving thought that you have. There's a part of the mind that tries to get rid of those. Your ego is against any form of joining. So your ego tries to conceal what he calls unacceptable body impulses to join. And your ego also tries to conceal any thoughts of God, any thoughts of love, any thoughts of truth. So people who are really insecure, fearful, programmed by the world, they don't want to hear what we're talking about right now. What I'm talking about right now and the way that I'm talking right now is completely threatening to the ego, to the part that wants to believe that you are limited, to the part of you that wants you to believe that you are a body. Wow. So the ego is the part of you that judges everything in terms of, is this a threat or is it a non-threat? Like if you've been listening to me and there's been a part of you that's been trying to determine whether it feels threatened or not threatened by what the Course in Miracles is saying. That is the ego. That is the false self. That is the you that is not your real self. Your real self is divine. Your real self is loved, loving, and lovable. Your real self is all-knowing. Your real self is eternal. Your real self is connected to all that is. Your real self was created by God. But it's crazy to be afraid of the body. If you are identifying with the body, stop being afraid of the body. Stop being afraid of the physical. If you are identifying with the physical, then being afraid of the physical makes no sense at all. There's a part of you that's chosen to be in a body by its own election. There's a part of you that only feels safe when it's identified with the body. Because the fact that you might think you are a body that could be hurt, that part of you that wants you to believe you are a body, that's what it uses to make you think that you can't be of God. How could you be of God when you could stub your toe? How could you be of God when you could have indigestion? You know what I'm saying? It's like there's a part of you that's trying to convince you that you couldn't possibly be this divine being that the Course in Miracles talks about. So there's a part of you that's glad to see you as a body. But also there's a part of you that hates the body because it doesn't think the body is good enough to be its home. So the real question you need to ask yourself is, where can I go for protection? Where can I go for protection? Where can I go for protection? Ask yourself, where can I go for protection? For protection. Where can I go for protection? For protection. Where can you go for protection? Where can you go for protection? Ask yourself, where can you go for protection? If you really want to be protected, you know the world can't really protect you. You already know that the world can't really protect you. You already know that you by yourself cannot really protect you. from all the things that seem like could happen in the world. So where do you go for protection? God. Where do you go for protection? God. Where can you go for protection? To the truth. Go to the truth. Go to spirit. Go to love. Where can you go for protection? So remember, who you really are can never die. No one that you know has ever really died. They've laid their bodies down. The most you can do is lay your body down. You can never die. No one dies. They laid their body down. They still exist. They still exist, but you may believe what the world taught you. So you think you're a body, you think you're a human being, so you think you die one day, so you think the people around you die one day. No one you've ever known has ever really died in the sense that they've lost their eternal nature. So yes, can you feel grief about that? Can you feel sadness about that? When people that you know lay the body down? Of course you can, because you don't see their physical body to communicate with them anymore. But don't lie to yourself. Don't believe that person, don't kill that person in your mind. Remember that who they really are still lives. Who you really are will always live. Don't believe the lie. You want to know what the big lie is? The big lie is that you are a body that lives and dies one day. The big lie is that you are a victim of the world you see. The big lie is that you are separate from everything you see. The big lie is that you are separate from love and separate from God. Those are lies. You are joined. You are eternal. You are spirit. You are not a victim. You are a creator. And that's the truth. So listen to this over and over and over again, because your mind needs to be retrained away from all of the false ideas that the world has taught you about yourself and you taught yourself. Mighty companion. The Course in Miracles is deep. I appreciate you. I want to acknowledge you for being willing to check this out. And don't forget to share the videos. Please share the videos. I got videos and more videos, which are reminders. So, mighty companion, may the Course be with you. I love you. I love you all so much. You're innocent. You're innocent. You're sinless and you're guiltless. You may make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but mistakes are for loving correction. Mistakes are not for punishment. Mistakes must be lovingly corrected. Love you so much. May the Course be with you too, Emily.